Number 5. This happened maybe 10 years ago when I was in my early 30s. I was standing in line at the local pharmacy to get my prescriptions. This is a small town and I'm a regular there, so they know me on sight. I was behind a couple of other people in line and there were a couple people in front of me. I kept feeling a tickle in the back of my head, but every time I looked behind me, there was a guy that was a few steps back looking at the floor. This happened several times by the time I was at the front of the line. When I got there, the pharmacist told me that she wanted to talk to me about my medication in the consultation room. I thought this was weird because we both knew I'd been on this medication for years, and would be for life. It was nothing new. But I get back to the room and close the door. She then comes in from the door on the other side that leads to the pharmacy. She told me that the man behind me kept stepping forward and sticking his nose in my hair, smelling it. He would then take a step back and stare at the floor. This shook me pretty badly because this was such weird behavior for a small town like this. The pharmacy staff then insisted that I wait there until the guy was distracted by another pharmacy employee. They then had a security guard walk me into my car and watch me drive off to make sure I wasn't going to be followed by the hair sniffer. I still use this pharmacy to this day and the same people still work there. I'm not sure if anything bad would have become of this, but I'm extremely grateful that they took the initiative to make sure that I was safe. Number 4. This happened to my mom in the early 1980s in my native country. My mom gave birth to my sister completely alone. She was a single mother with no one by her side other than the doctors and nurses on call. Her family lived in a different state and she'd kept quiet about her pregnancy up until this point. My mom gave birth to a healthy baby girl in the public hospital, and almost immediately a nun started shadowing my mom, eventually telling my mom that she was interested in raising my sister if she was willing to give her up. My mom obviously declined and told the nun to go away. That was in the morning, but that same night at around 1 a.m., my mom's nurse, who was an older lady, woke her up in a hurry and told my mom to get her bags packed. She told her, "Sweetheart, they're going to take your baby. If you want to keep her, then you have to leave now. I'll bring her to you, but you have to leave now. If you stay, she'll be gone by morning." My mom then got her things and left with my sister in the middle of the night, still in immense pain. Nurse Amelia was kind enough to give my mom money for a cab, and in exchange for this unforgettable gesture, my mom named her daughter Amelia. Sadly, these stories aren't even unheard of from that time period. The country I lived in was in a dictatorship, so people in the government did whatever they wanted. Oftentimes, they would take children from the poor, unwed mothers and then give them up for adoption to rich couples. It's messed up, but my mom got very, very lucky, and thank God for Nurse Amelia. Number 3. I'm just going to preface this by saying that I was the creepy party involved. I was in a small forest nearby my house at around 1 a.m. on a winter night. The reason for this is because I was practicing my meditation, and sometimes I like to go into nature during these sessions. I sat under a tree and just calmly melted into the environment. I managed to get in a pretty deep state, so everything was sort of dreamlike. Though about halfway into it, 2 women came into the woods. They were getting drunk or high or whatever and giggling and tipsy. They sat down about 20 feet away from me, facing away, chatting and totally unaware of my presence. That is, until one of them noticed me and freaked out, screaming, "Whoa, did you see that? What was that?" At that point, the other one noticed me and shrieked as well. My response was in a monotonous tone, and I said, "Don't worry, I'm a human woman." I was in a particularly deep state at the time, so I didn't really think about how it sounded until afterward. One of them responded, kind of stuttering, and asked what I was doing. I explained that I was meditating and that they don't need to worry about me and that they could proceed with their drinking. Needless to say, they laughed it off nervously but quickly made an excuse to leave. Number 2. This is a quick story from my dearly departed mother that stuck with me. It was 1980 and she was about 25 and living on the border of LA and Orange County, in a small little town named La Habra in Southern California. She was driving home in her 77 white Trans Am after a long manager shift at a Jack in the Box at about 1 a.m. Shortly after leaving the parking lot, she noticed a dark car pull up behind her and stay close behind. After about 10 minutes and a few turns later, she realized that they were actually following her. And in the mirror, she could see that it was a group of men sitting up front. My mom was about 5'2" and roughly 120 pounds at the time, though she was married to a cop. She knew immediately that going home wasn't an option as her husband was out on duty. So she did the next best thing and she went to him. The car then followed my mom around for miles, but as soon as she turned onto the street that the police department was located on, the car sped off. She then continued on and met with an officer that she met in the parking lot, who worked with my dad. He told her over and over that she did exactly what she was supposed to. He then went on to tell her that so many women just go home thinking they'll be safe inside, though that's rarely ever the case. So just a quick PSA, driving to a police department or hospital is often enough to deter most bad guys. Number 1. This is my father's story. As a child, my father was a paper boy, and he would get up early in the morning to deliver them. My father would always end up with a few extra papers at the end of his route, so he would offer the papers to people passing by on the street, people that were leaving for work and whatnot. On this particular day, my dad offered one to a man who was sitting in a parked van. The man just stared at my dad and didn't respond, so my dad just went on his way. As my dad was walking away, he heard the car door open and the sound of feet hitting the pavement. He then turned around and saw the man running after him. My dad was very athletic in his day, and he played baseball and basketball, so he just took off running. The man chased him for a bit, but my dad knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand and cut through backyards and hopped fences. He eventually lost the man and got home safely. He didn't tell his parents because he figured they would make him quit. Well, a few weeks passed by and 2 local boys eventually went missing, and their bodies were eventually found abandoned at a campground. They were assaulted and then shot in the head. The man who committed these awful crimes was William J. Wright, a man who's now fairly well known for this. When my father saw him in the newspapers, he recognized him as the man who chased him, but thankfully he got away. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.